The new Pokemon trailer just gave us a brand new classic Pokemon evolution, and guess what Pokemon they chose? They freaking chose Girafarig. Of all the Pokemon to go back and choose, you chose Girafarig. Ladies and gentlemen, a Paldea region evolution form is coming for Girafarig in the form of and called Farigiraf, Fragafrag, and it's the same freaking types, normal and psychic. Yes, you can tell this is exactly the route we're going to be going for today's video. All right, now Girafarig fans, don't freak out on me. I do think the actual design of, Farigiraf, or I'm gonna pronounce it wrong. Farigiraf, I think is how they pronounce it. I will say the design of it is kind of cool. The fact that they took away the tail and the tail thing just, I don't know, it just became a hoodie. It just literally became like a hoodie or something to go on top of Girafarig, whatever the case may be. It's a cool thing. It's design-wise pretty cool. I just think it's still one of the more boring Pokemons to pick. But hey, that's just me. But let's go ahead and get on with the rest of the video. So we got a bunch of brand new information from this trailer, and we got another glimpse at a lot more gameplay stuff, seeing more of that open world and just learning more about the game. So let's go ahead and dig into some of this stuff here. So what the trailer begins with, they kind of remind you that, hey, you are a student in the Paldea region, you're in this academy, and you're taking part of a program called the Treasure Hunt, where you're out to, I guess, search for treasure to some degree. But with that, they went ahead and shown you just so many different little things. I don't know if they've shown this before, I could totally be wrong, but I kind of felt this is the first time they showed what a Pokemon encounter would kind of look like. And it's essentially, I wasn't sure they do like a cool little animation thing, or is it the fact that you just run up to the Pokemon and your Pokemon just gets right into the battle? That's essentially kind of what they're doing. I imagine they're taking away a little bit of cues from Pokemon Legends Arceus, kind of that same little bit of a style where the Pokemon just kind of get into that fighting. And they show a little bit more of the terrestrialized gameplay. I still think it's something that needs to kind of grow on me. I'm not the biggest fan of, this being the main gimmick of the game, in my opinion. I will always be a fan and will always fight for Mega Evolutions to come back. I would just always just hope that becomes a thing at some point. I hope they just see that, okay, we've tried all these different things. Let's just bring back the Megas. I feel like everybody wants Megas back. But lo and behold, we have the terrestrialized gameplay, which I'll probably just be saying Terra for short because I'm going to mess up that word too many times. But they kind of talked a little bit more about the Terra gameplay. They said your moves that are based off the same typing of the Terra typing will do extra damage. That was one of the things that they talked about. Also, you'll be able to find wild Pokemon that can also go into Terra forms in battle, which is pretty cool. You'll tell that they're going to be a little bit more different by the open world. So in the actual trailer, you got to see a Jigglypuff, and the Jigglypuff had like a cool Super Saiyan-like aura going about it, and that's what made it like very stand out. And it turned out when you ran into that Jigglypuff to initiate a battle, it was actually a Terra Jigglypuff. It went into its Terra form right away. So that was a pretty cool thing to kind of tell that, like, okay, you can tell which are going to be your regular encounters versus your special ones that you're going to go against Pokemon that have, like, the Terra form already on them. Which is interesting because the Terra stuff gets a little bit more complex. What's interesting is the Terra forms, there's 18 different Terra forms, right? It's kind of based off the actual typings in the game. But the Pokemon will have each of their own Terra forms. Like you can have one Jigglypuff, right? And you can have another Jigglypuff, but they'll have two different Terra types. Like a Terra typing can be totally different between a different Pokemon and different Pokemon. Like Jigglypuff won't always have, let's just say, like a water Terra type. You might find one that's a water Terra type and one that's a fire Terra type. And so it's pretty cool to think that like this would make you want to maybe catch a different version of a Pokemon until you find one that has a Terra type that you just really want to have. So as much as I kind of like get on the whole Terra typing thing, I do think it's a pretty interesting, it's a pretty interesting gimmick. It definitely is going to do a lot when it comes to battle. So of course, trainers are going to be able to have their own Terra forms for their Pokemon, right? There's going to be Terra use and battles and everything, right? With even trainers. But the thing I think that I took away that was pretty interesting is that when a Pokemon is in their Terra form and they get like knocked down to like low health, we're talking like red life bar amount of health. They pretty much get knocked out of their Terra form, which I thought was pretty interesting because I wasn't sure if a Terra form just stayed permanently throughout the match or not. But if I'm not mistaken, this might have been the big confirmation that the Terra forms do not stay, right? As soon as they get hit into that critical low HP level, they're going to go and get that knocked out, which means you lose access to the Terra buffing, which of course, like I mentioned before, it's really good. The Terra forms obviously give you not only just that typing for that Pokemon, but they also allow any moves that you do with that same typing do more damage. So that's, you know, kind of the main benefits of Terra use so far that we've been seeing. In the open world, they did a cool thing by focusing on something known as Let's Go commands. So with these Let's Go commands, it takes your lead Pokemon that you have in the first slot, so which means you could always change that first slot Pokemon, but that lead Pokemon would pretty much allow them to go out and auto fight other wild Pokemon in the open world without initiating like a normal battle sequence. So they kind of showed, it was the water main Pokemon Quaxley. They showed him just going off and just attacking just like multiple different Pokemon out in the open world, which is a pretty cool way of just getting some quick battles done, which I think a lot of people wanted to see a mechanic sort of like this. You know, you think back to Legends Arceus, you know, you just had like you could just catch Pokemon like nothing without having to actually battle them. You could just throw the Pokeballs. I think this is their way of sort of doing it, you know, and not kind of like in a mimic to that way, but in its own kind of way of just doing it with a more up-to-date Pokemon game, right? These are way more, you know, current, recent times, whereas the other ones, the Legends Arceus ones, you know, they're supposed to take place back in the day and everything. So it was a pretty cool thing. I like to see something like that where it just makes just the whole experience go by a lot quicker. Plus, it's just kind of cool just to be able to send out your Pokemon, do some auto fights, like, hey, go ahead, take out this, you know, whatever you're gonna fight or whatever. So I do think that's a cool thing to see. They showed more stuff with the open world. You can open up your map and you can set down little markers to help with navigation to get to certain places. And this is where I think the trailer got pretty cool with the use of that Let's Go command, because if you're using it in the open world, curious if you can use it anywhere else. Well, they sure enough did show that. So pretty much they showed the trainer character entering an enemy base, and it looked like there was a whole kind of system to it where you ring the bell and it just initiates this whole thing of like a base takedown. So what you're doing is, as you enter the enemy's base, which again, it belonged to one of the games, I believe, enemy organizations, which was the Team Star. And so when the trainer entered the base, you were getting, I guess, attacked by all the grunts in that base. They were just summoning out wild Pokemon. And so there's like a little number counter on the top right corner, I think it was, that would say like 0 out of 30, which meant you had to take out 30 of the enemy's Pokemon. And so what you would do is you were using the Let's Go command by summoning out not just your lead Pokemon, but it looked like they allow you this time to summon out all of your Pokemon that are in your current team. On top of that, as soon as you took out all the grunts enemy Pokemon, you went ahead and then you finally fought, like, again, the boss of that group. And so in this case, they did show Mela that was coming out, and she, you know, attacks the trainer, and it goes to more of the traditional battle. So it's pretty cool just to see what they're kind of doing so far in terms of like differentiating itself from like past Pokemon games, right? And I think what I like a lot is the fact that they're really just focusing on more of these, like, you know, open world like kind of just ways of doing things, or I don't know, I shouldn't even say open world, just, you know, a normal way of just going about it differently. So TMs in this game are working a little bit more differently. So the TM, the way they work is you go to a Pokemon Center and then you go to a TM machine. And it's pretty much at this TM machine where you're going to be able to craft the TMs this time by using the materials that you either get from Pokemon battles or when you're catching them. Keep in mind though, it does look like you're getting copies of them. So they're kind of going back to like a single use system, which to some people, they're not going to like that. But to other people, you know, it doesn't matter, or they do like that. I do know it kind of goes both ways there, but it's cool to see how they're doing TMs. I kind of personally like this idea because, you know, there's moments where, like, you know, to get a TM, either you were buying it or trying to get it from like a different way. And I don't know, I kind of like the idea of just crafting them, you know, finding where you have to get the certain materials at. Maybe you have to fight a certain Pokemon to get whatever. In my opinion, I like that. So I think that's a cool thing to see. Now, they also did a little bit of like a brief to kind of like, you know, explain the different story paths that you can kind of get into. And from what I gathered, it might not be 100% accurate, or maybe this is just not, again, fully accurate, but there's going to be obviously the path of like taking on the enemy organization. Whether that changes between, you know, the Scarlet version and the Violet version, no idea. There's going to be kind of like a path of like Legends, I think, where it's focusing a bit more on like the Titan Pokemon. And then there's like the traditional path, which is like the Victory Road path, right? Which is taking on the 8 gyms and probably taking on the actual, like, you know, Elite Four and the championship and everything. And so that's cool that they kind of just give you little glimpses of pieces of them. They even show like in the path of Legends, I think, where you're just taking on the big Titan Pokemon, which is pretty cool to see. I'm very curious to see what other Titan Pokemon that they're going to introduce into the game and show off. I am, like I said, I am still curious at the whole like the path of like the Star, I think is what they kind of they named it, I think, and it is like kind of focusing on the enemy organization. I don't know. I guess I have to look more into it. I haven't looked more into it, but I am curious to see if there's going to be a little bit more to that in terms of like the different versions of the games. I'm kind of curious on that front. Obviously, Victory Road, I imagine, is pretty much the same from both sides, but we did get a look a little bit more into Victory Road at the first look at gym leader. I might pronounce this wrong, but I think it was Brassius, who was a grass type leader. And again, just like the previous games, the gyms are going to have their own unique way of, going through the actual gym to get to the actual gym leader. Sometimes they're like little puzzles. Other times it's just fighting a bunch of, different trainers in there. But in this case, they did show a little bit of it. I think a little glimpse of it, which was, I think it was like Sunflora or whatever. You were just running through with a field of them. So I have no idea how you'll navigate through this one. But again, they did show off the gym leader. And they even showed the fact that the gym leaders are definitely going to be using terraforms in battle, which would make the most sense. I mean, in this case, I think it was the gym leader, Brassius, was using Sudowoodo and then gave Sudowoodo activated its terraform, which made it a grass type, which is pretty cool because Sudowoodo is a rock type. You add the grass typing to it, it kind of helps negate some of that water damage. So I think that was a pretty cool thing to see. As much as I'm not the biggest fan of the whole Terra typing and everything, it's cool in the sense that like it just adds a little bit more of like complexity, or can add a little bit of complexity or difficulty to some of the battles you encounter, because if there's a Terra type that's going to go against like what a Pokemon might be weak to, hey, that just makes it a little bit more of a challenge. And so I like it in that front. I just don't like that it looks like it's a bunch of different hats. That's my only thing with it. But hey, to each of their own. Some people are gonna like that. Aside from that, the trailer just sort of ends on giving a glimpse at some of the different towns. You get a look at some of that character customization. They're gonna have a picture mode. For those of you that wanted the picture mode, hey, they're gonna have a picture mode. You can do some selfies, take pictures of the different landscapes, the different Pokemon. And then they took a second to talk about something that I thought was pretty interesting. And I don't know how much I'm gonna mess with this. I don't typically ever mess with these modes. I think, previous games had it as like camp mode or whatever, I think from the last games. It's picnic mode. And in picnic mode, you're kind of just hanging out with your Pokemon. You can do a bunch of different things. One of which that they focused on, that I just focused on, because I thought it was pretty interesting. It was like this sandwich making mode. You literally just make different sandwiches. And by making the different sandwiches, you can get different benefits. Like your Pokemon will get to earn more XP for, I think, a limited amount of time. Or maybe you'll make certainly easier for catching certain types of Pokemon. It's just an interesting thing that they're doing, in my opinion. But hey, it's cool. You can make sandwiches. That's something that I like to do it. So to do it in the game, sure, why not? But I just thought it was a pretty interesting thing that they added in. During the picnics, also, you can randomly find eggs. Don't ask me what that means. That's a pretty interesting thing. They literally said, yeah, sometimes you'll just randomly find eggs at picnics. So I'm not sure if Pokemon were getting busy or what was going on there. But hey, again, an interesting concept. And then they pretty much ended the trailer with showing off a little bit more of the Terra raid battles. I think that's just going to be, it's very just kind of similar to what you've seen in the past Pokemon games with Pokemon Sword and Shield. So they're kind of bringing that back, right? But of course, the big thing is, the big Terra Pokemon, or the big raid Pokemon, is going to have a Terra form. You guys can have your Terra forms. They brought back commands where you can like cheer for your allies of either putting up like their attacks or their defense, and then everybody gets a chance to catch the Pokemon afterwards. So again, there's some similar stuff to the past Pokemon games, but certainly a bunch of new stuff as well. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I would love to know your guys' thoughts on everything down below. Let us know. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you're brand new to the channel, maybe go ahead and consider subscribing. But we would love to hear your thoughts in that comment section. Overall, I'm still really excited for this game. We're very much approaching it. Only got a month left. And then this game finally comes out. I think I'm just most excited for is the multiplayer stuff. That's one thing that I wish they would show a little bit more on. I want to know more of what it looks like in the open world with your friends. Like, how does that navigate? How does that work? Is it... I don't know. I just want to know. That's the one aspect of it that they really haven't, I think, put too much emphasis on, is in the open world with multiplayer. How does that exactly look like and work? So I want to see more of that, hopefully in the next trailer. But let me know down below in the comment section your guys' thoughts. I'm Jared with 59 Direct, and we will see you guys in the next one.